In 1994, as a fireman, I was assigned to Station 11 in Santa Barbara and was working as an engineer on a paramedic engine. The emergency rooms were filled to the brim with sick people during a fierce flu outbreak. All it took was one phone call to find a critically sick patient who was bedridden and in critical need of medical attention. We needed to move swiftly. Quickly, I snatched the oxygen and positioned myself above her, covering her face with a mask. She was relieved that we had arrived in time, and she let out a relief breath as I adjusted it. While I took a deep breath, I could feel the relief she was feeling and couldn't help but laugh and say, "Well, if that's not an inoculation, I don't know what is." It wasn't long before I was sick. It was so devastating that it rendered me unable to move about or do anything else. I was so pale, weak, and suffering by the third day that I hardly recognized myself when I looked at my reflection in the mirror. I had extremely low blood pressure, which was accompanied by a racing heart and the inability to detect a pulse at my wrist. When I realized how bad things was, I yelled for assistance. Santa Barbara County Fire Department was quick to respond after my niece called 911, and they took me to the hospital in a flash. They responded quickly, identifying severe dehydration and injecting high-flow intravenous fluids. They stabilized my condition the following day by pumping 11 liters of fluids into me. Looking back, I didn't hold any grudges. A near-death experience changed my outlook, despite the terrifying event that preceded it. I got some medicine in the hospital to help with my symptoms, but it was quite scary when I suddenly passed out. The good news is that the medical team stepped in with Narcan to prevent the reaction, and I was able to recover. Having a near-death experience occurred to me during that crucial night in intensive care. An experience that makes me happy every time I think about it is the time I felt like I stepped into a celestial dimension. I was, however, gliding through a celestial environment adorned with gorgeous stars and orbs. It was as if I were being led through a festive procession as they greeted me with open arms. I experienced an overwhelming sense of acceptance, love, joy, and being embraced, emotions that every human being dreams of. Feelings of rage, bitterness, malice, and jealousy, among others, faded away. These feelings don't go away with us. Rather, they serve as teaching tools. As if caught in the middle of an endless cosmic climax, I continued to soar through this celestial expanse. It wasn't just a boom, it was an ever-present energy, the source from which we arose. When we glimpse it here, it's a win, a promotion, or the adoration of a loved one. But when we multiply all those victories by 1,000,000, we feel the vibration. This is a wonderful present, but our purpose in being here is to dispel the heavy, disagreeable vibrations. As I floated through this cosmic pleasure, I had the feeling of escaping from a hot, confined area and floating on an endlessly vast balloon. How did I ever think I was that person? In the midst of all this bliss, I wondered repeatedly. It felt like a strange trick to reconnect with my human self, with all the complexities and emotional triggers that could drive me into a downward spiral of depression. Yet those things were gone. I knew every detail of Bill Letson's life, yet I still didn't want anything to do with it. Even though Bill Letson was a kind guy, I had no interest in going back. Reversing course was completely out of the question. I felt as worthless as a banana peel. A substantial location with overhead lighting, gurneys, and equipment hung from the ceiling resembled a clinic or facility as I continued to fly. 3 diminutive, hooded figures, like those in the film Communion, stood before me. Hidden beneath their ominous hoods, they betrayed wide smiles. Regarding similar individuals, one woman who got in touch with me called them Warthog men, bringing up memories of encounters she had as a kid. Seeking solace in knowing they were not isolated, numerous others also made contact. These otherworldly beings were friendly to me, despite their unusual appearance, which some could find scary. "How was it?" was one of the questions they asked. "Could you tell me what you realized? Tell us what you know." I was taken aback by the abrupt transition into a fantastical meeting with creatures resembling cartoon characters. As one of them approached me, they looked me over closely. Then, with a giggle, they said, "He doesn't remember us." And I said, "Listen, folks, I'm experiencing some difficulty with this. From my vantage point, everything appears incredibly peculiar, you know. Give me a moment. I vaguely recall you." They were so happy that they bounced and giggled. I absolutely love them. Another man stood in the background, seemingly in charge, an ethereal apparition with a towering stature and a radiant, jubilant grin advanced toward them. With his eyebrows up and his eyes wide open, he exuded an aura of love and generosity. He was the most polite and understanding boss anyone could ask for, despite his obvious authority. My chest ached from the immense emotion that welled up in me as he drew near. I thought I was going to cry uncontrollably because I loved you so much. His boundless love was both overwhelming and reassuring. Their laid-back attitude was charming. Whenever I spoke, he would laugh, and we would engage in light-hearted banter. I could sense its impact on me, a laughter that appeared to convey, "You're loved unconditionally." It was quite familiar, like that of a parent and child. I remember declaring, "I am not returning there," at one point. Absolutely not. At some point, I suppose I will have to leave this area. What comes next? I inquired. A summary of my life. Is it time to begin working on that? Like an independent toddler, he thought this was funny. Of course, I'm game for that. What would you like to do first? I started telling anecdotes, including the one about the job offer for a wildlife sanctuary on a remote island, which my wife had always dreamed of. Instead, I opted for a thrilling career in firefighting, but I now deeply regret not pursuing her ambition. It became clear to me as I spoke that they weren't paying attention. We were merely having a brief presentation. Despite being the only one in the room unaware, I had no intention of staying. This was not the end of my life. "All right, that's enough," he declared with a fatherly stride. "Return at once." That blew my mind. He should return. I will not be returning there. Holy cow. Yes, you must return, he adamantly stated. You should prioritize your tasks. He and I were alone when the three little people disappeared, as if they had been reassigned. Speaking to me, he announced, "All right, you're going back." I felt myself dissolving as he did, the environment around me vanishing into thin air, as if I were being shot out to another frequency and sent hurtling into the night. You wouldn't want to spend much time there because of how depressing and lonely it was. Then all of a sudden, I was awake and back in my own body. After yelling, "You're awake," the nurse approached the patient. "Yeah," I responded. "We must have a conversation. I need to notify the doctor," she exclaimed in a rush. "Because we had no idea what would happen to you, we were really worried." I gave a little nod and said, "Sure. Why am I back here?" "Then I'll ask you. Once I left this place, I was back home. It was my dearest friends and I. I don't know how I got back here. It seemed as though I had died. My darling, you were in escrow before you dropped out, and now you're right here with us," she stated. "It's something you'll have to accept. In hindsight, I see that it was wise counsel. Get back into your life, to the everyday tasks, and live fully because you're on a journey. Advise spiritual leaders and yogis after such an event. You're following the path that has been laid out for you, like a soldier serving your higher self. Put your best foot forward and make decisions that raise your vibration so you can return to work and make them pleased." I wanted to know more about the basement and why it was there. In life, we each generate our own unique vibration. Our vibration is low when we're selfish, cruel, or self-centered, and that's where we'll end up after we die. It will only last till we realize how foolish we were in this world. It will not last forever. Because we are limitless, intelligent beings, we can find solutions to any problem. People who recount NDEs frequently mention visiting lower frequency realms until they get over their shock or confusion about leaving this world. For instance, Edgar Cayce would begin his out-of-body experiences as a little dot of light and progress through levels similar to Jacob's ladder as he explored other realms. He would climb the flight of stairs, past elfin, hooded gnomes, and other creatures. Their robes were dark at the bottom levels and lightened as he climbed the 8 or so levels he could remember. Edgar Cayce once went into the Akashic records to get readings and then came back. According to the description, the first level was a nightmare realm full with horrifyingly deformed people with abnormally large hands or feet and other strange characteristics. He would ascend, escaping these unpleasant regions, as he followed the guiding light up the stairway. In light of Michael Tamara's comments, he talks on how we go through life trying to figure out who we really are and how we can die with dignity after having accepted our immortality and strength. The key is to keep moving forward and follow the light. Every one of us has a part to play in the great show that is life. Many people fail to see that death is a lovely transition, an improvement over this life, a passage from this world to the next, when they will finally be at home. They are ahead of us on the trail, but we will meet up with them when conditions are perfect. For tuning in, I am grateful. I think this video might speak to you at this very moment if you're seeking further knowledge. Consider subscribing or viewing another video if you so desire. So long.